As a guest of honor at a meal, Jesus clashed with the Pharisee. From February 11th to 20th of the year 30, Jesus and 10 apostles made a journey through northern Perea, visiting the cities and villages where the 70 teachers were active. They were pleased to see that their messengers were gaining traction. The truth of the gospel was taking root across all layers of the population, spreading now without the accompaniment of miracles. This entire campaign in Perea, lasting 3 months, was carried out almost autonomously by the 70 teachers, who received little assistance from Jesus or the apostles during this time. These 70 godly men spread the message that every person was meant to be a child of God. They did not preach Jesus but taught the message they had received from him. It was not so much the personality of Jesus that characterized the gospel message, nor the way he had instructed them. Unfortunately, the first believers did not follow his instructions for long. As soon after his death and resurrection, they deviated from what he had taught them. Very quickly, the early church was founded on the basis of miracles and the glorified memories of his God-human personality, such as the victory over death through his resurrection. On the Sabbath of February 18th, Jesus was in Rabbah, where a wealthy Pharisee named Nathanael lived. This man organized a large breakfast on this Sabbath morning, inviting Jesus as the guest of honor. Besides Jesus and the apostles, a dozen Pharisees were also invited. When Jesus arrived at the Pharisee's house that morning, most of the guests were already present and seated at the table. Upon entering, Jesus greeted all the attendees and immediately walked over to sit at the left hand of his host, without going to the water basins to wash his hands. Jesus washed his hands only to clean them and never did so as a mere ceremonial act. The Pharisees, however, traditionally washed their hands twice before sitting at the table. The host was shocked because Jesus failed to meet the strict requirements of their tradition. He dared not say this directly to Jesus and instead conspicuously whispered to the Pharisee on his right, making frowning eye contact with the guests opposite him, who curled their lips in scorn. Of course, Jesus did not miss this and finally said, "I had thought you invited me into this house to break bread with me and that you might be curious about the heavenly kingdom. However, I see that you ignore me even though you have invited me as your guest of honor." When Jesus said this, they looked down and remained silent. As no one spoke, Jesus continued in a combative tone, "Some of you are my friends, some of you are even my disciples, but most of you persist in refusing to see the light and recognize the truth. Even when the fruits of the gospel present themselves to you in large numbers. How carefully you clean the outside of the cups and plates, while your spiritual food inside is filthy and unclean. You ensure that you show a pious and holy exterior to the people, but your inner soul is full of self-righteousness, greed, extortion, and all kinds of spiritual corruption. Your leaders even dare to plot the murder of the Son of Man. Do you not understand that the God of heaven also looks at the inner motives of the soul and not only at your outward pretenses and pious language? Do not think that giving alms and paying tithes will cleanse you from unrighteousness. The heavenly judge of all people does not look at traditional acts but at what lives in the heart. Woe to you, Pharisees, who stubbornly reject the light of life. You are meticulous in paying tithes and give alms with much display, but you arrogantly reject the gift of God and spurn the revelation of his love. Woe to all who shun righteousness, reject mercy, and reject the truth. Woe to all who despise the revelation of the Father while striving to occupy the seats of honor in the synagogues and crave flattering greetings in the marketplace. Jesus was genuinely angry and stood up to leave. However, just before he walked away, one of the scribes sitting there asked in a soothing tone, "But Master, you make serious accusations against us. Is there nothing good about the way we serve God?" Jesus stopped, looked at the questioner, and sharply replied, "You also take pleasure in sitting at the front at feasts, and wearing long robes, while you lay heavy burdens on people's shoulders, which are painful to bear. And when people's souls stagger under these heavy loads, you do not lift a finger to help them carry the burden. Woe to you, who take the greatest pleasure in erecting memorials for the prophets whom your ancestors killed. Do you not realize that you are endorsing what your fathers did? Do you not see that history threatens to repeat itself? Now your leaders are plotting to silence him who has come today to do what the prophets did in their time. They also proclaimed the righteousness of God and revealed the mercy of the Heavenly Father. But the blood of the prophets from times past will fall upon this corrupt, self-righteous generation. Woe to you, scribes, who have taken the key of knowledge away from the common people. You refuse to go the way of truth yourselves and simultaneously want to prevent all others from doing so. But the doors of the kingdom of heaven cannot be closed in this way. I have opened them to all who have the faith to enter, and these gates of mercy will not be closed by the prejudice and arrogance of false teachers and unfaithful shepherds. Misleading teachers are like whitewashed graves. Outwardly they appear beautiful, but inside they are full of rotting bones and all kinds of spiritual uncleanness. When Jesus finished speaking, he left the house in anger without having eaten any of the food. Some of the Pharisees who heard these stern words applied them to themselves and realized the truth. They broke with their traditional lives and believed in his teaching to enter the kingdom. But the majority persisted on the path of darkness and became even more determined to spy on him so that they could misuse his statements on the day they brought him to trial.